Hello, fellow Pops. I'm Dr. F Scott Feil, and I'm bringing you a message from our sponsor at Ice Shaker. My diet's always been a little bit messed up most of my life, and I recently started trying to take back control of my health. And one of the issues my doctor pointed out was that I needed to make an increase in my protein intake. Now, I can't eat chicken breasts all day, every day, so protein shakes and powders have become a big help. Ice Shaker and its built-in removable agitator is an amazing product. They come in a bunch of sizes and colors, and you can even get inscriptions and logos on them. They're stainless steel, double wall insulated, and hold ice for 30 plus hours. If you're interested in purchasing one, you can click on the link in our show notes. Or if you're interested in selling them for your business and making commission, and let's be honest, if you're listening to the Professors of Profit vlogcast and you can consider yourself a pop or a professor of profit, you're likely interested in selling these as a side hustle. You can click on that link in the show notes as well. Or you can reach out to me directly on social media. I'm pretty available there. I love Ice Shaker, and I'm betting you, your patients, and your clients will too. Ice Shaker, let's shake things up. Now let's start the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Professors of Profit vlogcast. I'm your host, Dr. F Scott Feil, and I've got with me longtime friend, former coworker of over a decade ago at this point. I can't believe that. Dr. Lisa Alvarez-Holland. Lisa, how are you?
Hey, how are you, F. Scott? So excited. Our paths crossed over in the Charlotte region, and then, we went our separate ways, and then we converged again into the global physical therapy world, kind of move into entrepreneurship conversations. And now here we are, kind of over some humps and blessings and curvy hustles, as I speak of it, and have found our way together because certain people are supposed to know each other. That's all I can say.
Yeah, when you look back at that group that we worked together with there back in
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte, there was some heavy hitters, some power players that are doing
Mm-hmm.
amazing things now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy that
Mm-hmm.
we were all together in one space at one time.
And the corporate healthcare model did not recognize us.
Nope,
That's
nope,
like the epitome of what the problem is, right?
absolutely, absolutely. So, and that's why we're all doing big and amazing things now because we got out of
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
what we're going to start talking about today is yoga as a hobby slash interest slash side business. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how you started your journey a little bit, right? You did some
Correct.
yoga on the side. So let's start at the starting point and then take us through your evolution and your journey and where
Yeah.
you're at.
Well, thank you. When I started in athletic training, got my undergrad in one of the first, I think there was only five schools in New York State. You can get a bachelor's in athletic training at the time. And we had just been transitioning over while I was in school. And so that was very much a blessing because as that was evolving, I could really kind of see I think I had, again, I think it's always been blessings. I've always been given the visionary sort of forward thinking or um, slightly outside the box sort of mentors and teachers. And when I was at Hofstra University studying that, I I knew there was only so much place I could go, where I was going to have a professional sports team, as a woman who wanted to be a mother, who wanted to be a present mother in my home and active. So very early on, I kind of really looked at that athletic mindset and what I was training and working with, and really understood from my dad's PTSD and his chronic pain injury and kind of seeing where mind over body was. I was always a mind body person, whether it was that, and it was just a matter of different sports. And to me, um, when I went into physical therapy, it was really jarring for me having come from that, where you're like sitting there and you're like, mind over body to even get your performance up and working with Division 1 kind of mindsets. And me being a high achiever to go into a hospital system with a bunch of so and so smart people that were supposed to be so much more elevated than in an ATC or whatever, and then just see them just completely disconnecting the mind and the body, going to a person who had suffered a stroke, and you'd be looking at what they're giving them for like sustenance and you just were like, does anybody notice what the athletes do to get into the Olympics? Like what are we doing here? And so very early on, um, I looked into where I could go and what could I bring into my practice. And I was using yoga for stress management early on, for some anxiety I had, typical type A, whatever, killing myself softly and slowly with my hormones adjustments and things like that. And after I had my kids and had that kind of postpartum stuff that we're all balancing women's health people over now, I found my journey through yoga, saw how this could have helped my dad, saw how this could have helped the people who were, the athletes, as well as people who were in a bed post stroke. I just started connecting the dots, and it became something I really wanted to learn a lot more in. I will say I kind of thought of it as an alternative to therapeutic exercise like everybody else, because that was the culture of, the mid to late 90s kind of thing. Everything was aerobicsy still. Everything was like that sort of stuff, learning the Delorme method and, 3 sets of 10 and things like that. So I kind of was using that language, but then come 2000 and come the radical difference that I had with the birth of my second child versus my first child, having practiced yoga, taking on again the personal mindset of personal authority in the birthing room and all of this. Not only did I say to myself, well, we've got to use this into athleticism, but the National Athletic Trainers Association, they didn't want to take any of my credits. They needed 80 every 4 years. And I was like, I can't do the PT thing or whatever. So I had to make that choice. I had to take that curve. And I was very much still involved. And I went into women's health. I decided to say, the sport now is pregnancy, went into my niche. And how am I going to talk to them? They'll do the pregnancy yoga. That was what was popular. I was moving to Charlotte. I moved to Charlotte with the intention of saying, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. I'm all burnt out from New York, the whole orthopedics and whatever. Like, it's just craziness, the clinics, and trying to be a mom and trying to live, on your little plot of land with $11,000 in taxes every year back in the day. So I just kind of put that in the back of my head. But then I was sitting in the cul-de-sac and I wasn't working. I literally did walk away. I thought it was going to be a stay-at-home mom for a year. And I was hearing them, and I was like, if you could go someplace besides the YMCA and you could drop your kid off and you could go take care of yourself or whatever. And it just ding, ding, dinged. And I opened up the Belly Guru, and it was hard. I didn't realize the culture of Charlotte versus New York. And I didn't realize that just, literally within the past 5 years or so, they stopped teaching flex and stretch class because they could not say yoga a couple of years before, because there's a Christian organization. Like, I didn't realize how far behind or how much I was in the Bible Belt, because this is a banking town.
I was just going to say, it's crazy because Charlotte's a transplant town. Nobody's from Charlotte.
I know.
They're all from the north. That's ridiculous.
And then they go there and something happens. Like,
I know.
I don't know what happens. It was the only place I've ever been where, like, you didn't bring yourself. You sort of came into it and then you became that place. So I really opened that business kind of really naive. It was very forward thinking. Now it doesn't seem so, but like, this is 2005. And I'm integrating yoga and physical therapy. And I didn't even know there were any other physio yogis out there, because social media was not out. So I didn't understand some of my mentors. Like, they were in different parts of the country. We were all in these silos. But I did come from New York City. And these are things that people were doing for dancers and bankers and all of these things, these integrative type of stuff. And I came down here and I was like, direct access, I'm using it. Like, I am going straight to the public. So it was very forward thinking. Fast forward, I went to work for the hospital where we met because of a marketing ploy. I was like, I really honestly thought, well, maybe if I go in the system, it's going to be even easier to teach them how to empower these women and whatever. Oh my God, I was in for a surprise. I don't know. Again, I was in the hospital systems, but they were New York City hospital systems, a lot more forward thinking. Like, I think I could have launched this in 2007, 8, 9, 10 when I was in the hospital there, but not here. And I hit so much boundaries. Like, well, the nurses do education. I get it, but they're not doing it. They're not doing this education. I mean, we were just talking about pelvic floors, and it got to the point at the hospital where they said, would you like to start the pediatric pelvic floor thing for the hospital? And I just, sounds like so great, like how we're trained, like, yeah, I'll start that division and this and that. But I was looking at what was happening to the women's health people that started the pelvic floor stuff and how they were sort of being utilized and still under the veil of whatever. And I said, I think this is the time for me to go full force 100% into my business that I had been there as the side hustle and teaching the yoga and empowering women. That itself was turning into, they brought their kids. That was a brand, Mama Guru. Then there was kid, Mommy and Me, Baby Guru. And then it was even partner birthing. Like I was really innovative in that. Again, didn't sound so weird in 2015, but yeah, back then it was like, who's this crazy lady? What's she doing? And it was hard. I hit a lot of resistance. Marketing was very expensive, printing. And I really pulled back and it kind of stayed a side hustle because it had to financially. And like I had benefits in this and that. Luckily, I was in a marriage at the time that he allowed some, and we also moved down to Charlotte from New York, right? So his job allowed and me, whatever, to have some ability to work the hours I wanted or whatever. But I mean, I was running and playing something and on from 8 to 2, 2 or 3 days a week, pulling in, the amount of money that would have been half the time I'm sitting at part-time, whatever. And so that then when I said we're going full force with this, that evolved into much more of a life coaching. Yoga itself, again, being visionary there, was realizing it's not just on the mat. So much of the work is the inner game, which again was a lot of my athletic training. This is all we were doing, but I had a vernacular for it. It was popular in the golfer, tennis, stay-at-home mom world. And I sold it as I had to, but there came a point that I realized this is even a bigger thing. This is now where I actually feel like I need to be talking to the F Scotts. I need to be talking to these other radical leaders of doing something. And that kind of got me here to executive coaching and my Mind Body Brand Academy and working on leadership really with these same principles. It's just yoga off the mat.
That's awesome. That's such a good transition and an amazing journey and story. I want to take a step back for just 1 minute and touch on something you said there because of the importance of yoga and the fact that you were able to go from the mat to off the mat. What are some of the reasons and the benefits you think that somebody like a professor or a clinician or a healthcare student that are just starting to get, those feelings of burnout and I'm not sure what to do with my life kind of thing, like, how can I possibly make more money doing this stuff, right? Why should they look into yoga? Why is that an avenue you think they should pursue?
Well, I think they have to understand yoga itself is an industry. The route I took was always in the therapeutics. In fact, I was part of that whole like International Association of Yoga Therapists birthing this, like it's now a recognized certified level type of thing. So there's that distinction. So I am talking about the therapeutic use of it and the lifestyle coaching, the life coaching, the mind game, the inner game, the outer game, and the other game. In that realm, I think it's very helpful. Not that it's not in the fitness world, get your mind and your body and focusing and this and that, but it's like anything else. For the neurophysiological benefits, stress relief, it allows you to be mindful and present, which I think none of us are living in the now. We're living in the past, it's our history, or we're living in the future. And that's what burnout is. Burnout is, in my definition, a disconnect with yourself in the now. Because if you were staying with yourself in the now, you wouldn't be burnt out. You'd make those curves. You'd make those choices, those decisions. When you're just kind of floating in the drift, at some point you got to decide, I'm going to stand up and I realize it's shallow water. Let me go. I can go deeper or I can get the hell out. And so I'm speaking in that. And in that way, in understanding you as the person, you can then make those decisions with personal authority, with some conviction. You're not worrying about what Janie's thinking. There's unfortunately a very big wound in academia, and all academia, definitely in when you get into some of these, medical school, law school, whatever, this identity of the self in that outer game kind of thing. External validation, competition type of thing. The beauty of yoga is that it's with the right teachers that are teaching the whole science. it's bringing you back to yourself, this intimacy with ourselves. And I believe all dis-ease comes from that. So you're going to be getting all the science on the neurological system changes, all the trauma recovery stuff in the psychology, all the stuff from the sociology, being able to like just style flex with people, put yourself in someone else's shoes. We call that emotional intelligence. That's inherent in the practice of it. Relational intelligence, but then going even higher into a very higher thing that I think is helpful for those in academia. You want to seek, right? We're all there to knowledge and discovery. How about we actually start accepting that this is a quantum world? Go look at the research. Nobody's following Newtonian physics as the main thing anymore, except the textbooks and everybody else that doesn't want to change things because it's just too hard to understand and there's too much money to be made the other way. This is training for living that way. And just as we were speaking before this a little bit, once you made that decision, F Scott, of maybe it had to be COVID coming in, but once you made that decision, other doors opened. I have not found that not to be the case. So that's where it can be helpful. If you're lost, it's because you're stuck in the gap between your old identity and the new one that's forming. And when you're stuck there, you need a path, a process. Yeah. This is a way, when you got an hour, mind, body, spirit, everything done. You know, you don't have time, you could do this. You could take a piece of it. You could do it off the mat once you learn it on the mat.
Yeah. I love that. That's a great summary. What do you think? I mean, you know, like I said, this journey has been a wild one for you, and it's gotten you to this new place now. Tell us a little bit about where you're at now and what you're doing, how it has finally evolved and your current status.
Yes, thank you. So come around, finally, around 2015, 16, my colleagues started being like, wait a minute, she's doing the stuff so-and-so is saying to do and this sort of stuff. And I naturally, organically began getting questions. And so I decided, well, this should be a revenue stream. This should not be a freebie. And so that birthed me into making my own online academy, Mind Body Brand Academy, kind of being a bit of more of a mentor in the idea of thought leadership, like moving the clinician into the creator. And that was really what I was trying to do, particularly for women, because so many of them, and I felt what I was seeing. And the reason I work with health providers is obviously I'm in that, but I do honestly believe that if you chose as a profession to go from a job to a career and you put in all that money and that whatever, inherently you're a pretty good person. And I think we need pretty good people inherently in leadership. The problem is, the highest place a clinician ends up going is either in a classroom or in their silos of their hospital systems in a directorship or something in management. And nobody's hearing anything they've learned and all that stuff they understand from dealing with people and stuff like that. So I really wanted a route for that. I think women can do that very beautifully because it works with their time and this and that. And they could also expand, especially with the digital products and things like that, to make the most use of things. And so I became somewhat of a mentor. And as everything happens in life, when you're not completely with the circle that needs you to do that work, I felt like that was a calling to me. I had my little silo, I had my little oasis, I could have stayed in there. That's what they needed to maybe jump to. But I saw myself and started really getting a sense. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm connected to my faith in terms of that, you know, God speaks to me through things. And I was in the wrong marriage. I was in the wrong, like for me to be where my vision was, if I had gone there, there would have been, it wouldn't have worked in that scenario, even in terms of, where I was in life. Like my kids needed to be where they are now. And I needed to feel like my obligation with them, because I had always part-timed it. I had always pulled myself back just a little bit because of the who I was with in my circle. And I'm realizing that. And so that organically 2020, to tell you the truth, I had just gone through horrible 2 years of divorce stuff, separation that was going to end up being a divorce finally in 2022, and just radical changes. My kids went off to college. My son went to go live with my husband, my ex-husband, and just like so many things changed. I just sort of took 2020 off. At that point, I had decided I was going to start. I started 2020. I was going to take all my silos, from a year, about 2 years of work, and I was going to go travel the world and go to all those little silos I made and do all these events and this and that. And again, God had a different plan. And so I had sold my house, sold my car, like I did all this, like I freed myself of everything. And then I went on vacation and I came back and then we were in lockdowns and I was like, holy crap, what the hell? I had literally built up, I had the 5-year plan and I was on it successfully, by the way. But this happened. But looking back, there was the blessing that I finally did the divorce. I finally said, and I had to restart everything. There was a huge financial infidelity involved in that. I mean, I was really starting over, but I really was like, what do you want to do? And I did decide not to renew my licensure. Even though I could use the money and whatever, I was like, and I did it survival mode for a couple of years. I went back. I was helping my brother with his pediatric company. But I said, man, if I'm willing right now to live in a car rather than do that, I must. And this other stuff, what kept me going was my podcasts, my Mind Body Brand Academy crew. And I was so glad I had a digital thing already going. And it just was like God had set me up for a couple of years for the poop show that just happened. And that put me in a position where I was like, what do you really want to do? And I've always been talking about empowering people for leadership, particularly women, and just helping them. Like I said, I think the good people there, and now with them all burnt out and abused, we still need healthcare.
Yeah.
We just need to do it a different way. We still need academia. We just need to do it a different way. Here I am, Maven Maverick. We can, let's do it.
Well, and I think too, one of the things that the pandemic showed us was that healthcare leadership in particular was lacking in a lot of areas. We failed a lot of different ways, a lot of different people. People didn't listen to leadership. Leadership didn't, step up. It seemed as though, and again, you can't ever be prepared for something like the pandemic that happens once in a lifetime.
Yep.
Right. But there were certain things that we could have handled probably a little bit better. And this is one of the things I've been kind of kicking around, in academia for a little while is, what do you guys think? Like, how do you think we handled the pandemic, right? How do you think leadership went? How did things look to you, right? And most of them is pretty negative outlook overall. Like, it didn't go too well. Like, we could have handled things better. Like, you always have to have like a worst case scenario plan in place. And again, you're not going to prepare for a pandemic, although now we may, but it's not something that was on anybody's radar. So we should have been able to implement at the very least the worst case scenario and kind of, responded a little bit quicker, a little bit better, a little more appropriately. And because of that, I think now it's more important than ever to start pushing leadership earlier on in the student journey and say, hey, we need as many of you that are willing to take the charge to step up and be better leaders. I know you signed up for this healthcare gig, but we need leadership within the healthcare gig as well. So,
right. And not just MBAs, right? Like even thought leadership, write the damn book.
Yeah.
Speak about fusing, like the first time I heard things, the first people I was trying to connect these dots were, it was just sad. It was like Marianne Williamson. She was speaking about the cancer and how people are like kind of the cancer cells. And when you have them go rogue or whatever, I'm like, oh, here's my connection with healthcare. Why is that not a healthcare provider making those connections?
Exactly.
Like, like that, why are you not out there being this big? Why are we only like teaching? And when we do go out there, it's just always in the nature of making bodies better or making minds better. And I'm just like, how about we start being some of the people that are making people better?
Yeah. Well, and you use a really good term there. I love thought leader and thought leadership over influencer. Like, to me, influencers like a made up social media thing that like, oh, these influencers have all these followers. And it's a shame because they do, and they have all these eyes on them, when in reality, we should also be looking at thought leaders and people who are in academia and people who are in healthcare and people who are doing smart and brilliant things. But they're the ones that are putting their thoughts out there in book form, in podcast form, in, speaking gigs, in all the things that they should be doing and that we as healthcare providers should be doing. We have the credentials, we have the education, right? If a gym teacher can go out and give motivational speeches for
Right.
$5,000
Right.
with
Or a coach,
minimal,
right? A former NFL coach, right?
exactly. We can get out there and do those same things. We can be motivational. We can help make the better person, the healthier, bigger body, mind, soul person, right? We can help
If
impact people's
anything,
lives.
we can do it even more,
Right.
because what makes me unique as a mindset coach, what makes me unique as an executive coach, what makes me unique when I'm a strategist setting somebody up on their brand shift for their personal brand, is the fact that I not only am able to assess you in the structures of, like, you know, the normal, like, who's your avatar, who do you want to work with, or whatever, but or even in mindset, like, you know, courage and things like that. But I literally, if it's not connecting, I know enough to understand and say, like, literally down to what's going on here biochemically. Like, what's going on at your nervous system that you're not receptive? Like, the logic is there. There's a huge gap. And so many times in academia and healthcare and any type of teaching type of, like, kind of thing, we keep thinking, give them access, give them access, give them information. There is no, we have Google, okay? We have, they don't have, they have access. There's a huge gap between knowing and doing. And one thing that always put me ahead of the game, I think, which people just didn't understand, but now they do, is I work with people in the gap. I'm working on their behaviors, because there's a reason why somebody with a diabetic history comes to me, and I see them in physical therapy. And this is my first job. I realized I had this one guy who, he came, and in the beginning, I was a new student. He had lost like part of his foot. And by the time I left there 2 years later, I had seen him through a below knee amputation and an above knee amputation. He knew what to eat. He knew, but what was it was culturally and socially, like, I was basically telling him, don't be part of your family. And that's kind of got me into the yoga aspect of bringing that in off the mat. But like, what worked in yoga? What works in yoga is being able to kind of like understand the underlying operating systems. And that's why coaches know the underlying operating system, knows how to get the potential out of people. But guess what? So does a physical therapist.
Yep.
We get people out of bed if they just freaking almost lost their life. Hello?
Yeah.
You know, and then we have to credit that, because I know in school, and I know it's still like that in school, you know, the whole thing of like, let's all be doctors. We've been chasing the damn letters, and we've been putting people in leadership based upon their letters and their CEUs on a clinical sense, when that has no bearing whether or not they have leadership qualities.
Well, look at like just physical therapy in general. We're thrown into often a year or two in, and we're thrown into clinic director positions or managerial positions
because we don't have enough of those people.
Right. And what prepared me to do that? Was there anything in my schooling that taught me how to be a manager or a director or a rehab director? No. They're just like, well, you're next in line. You've done a good job at treating, so go ahead and do that next.
Right.
And
and it makes no sense.
No.
Like, that's what we do at the corporate. Like, healthcare turned into corporate. So it's all corporate. To me, it's all corporate. It's not separate anymore. So, like, that's just what's in there. That's your CEO. Those are your C-suite people. And then now for-profit companies have to speak to the board, who are even less invested in, they just want the numbers. You know, they just want the thing. So this is what the hospitals turned into. This is what everybody's following, the golden rule, which is basically what the hospitals are doing. But if you think about it, you know, again, when I finally left the hospital and I had that opportunity, I said to myself, I literally said to myself, I'm no longer in the same business as them, because I woke up to the fact it's not that they're not hearing me. It's not that they don't understand, or I haven't brought this, or yoga's too radical or whatever, or they can't get paid or whatever. The problem is that if I'm correct, they go out of business. Yeah. It just comes down to that. And I realized, ooh, I just am in a place where I know how to play team. I'm just playing, I'm at an evolved level, and that's where we're at right now. We've got to figure out, how do we play team while also being diverse and inclusive and whatever, like, and really it's just maturity. It's relationship, it's communication, and it's leadership from the inside and out.
Yeah.
So that's where I am right now.
Well, speaking of that, let's give the audience some tips, some tricks, some things you've learned over the years that might help them if they're looking to get into leadership, or if they're looking to build a business, or use yoga in some way, shape, or form, or just some takeaway tips that you might give that you've learned over the years.
Yeah, thank you for that. You know, when you practice yoga, if you do want to take yoga on as part of your molding, definitely do find a teacher that has been trained in all the sciences as best as possible, that holds things you may not want to go to. The meditation classes, the satsang, sitting and just listening and learning. If you're going to take a teacher training, let's let it just not be a glorified therapeutic exercise, yoga for back pain, yoga for this. Like, let's actually become, right? Like, how wonderful would it be if people had to become what they were going to then teach? And that's, I think, what affords yoga such a nice thing over, like, as an athletic trainer, I was taught that. They told us, listen, you better be in shape, not only because you got to run on the field, but because they're looking at you, and it's kind of a crock to be like, and then be like being told. And when I went into healthcare, I felt there was a responsibility too, to be like, not, like young people, older people, they're looking, and you have to kind of like practice what you preach in all beingness. And that's yoga when you're taking a pose. So look for somebody that's going to teach it to you like that. And then you will start to become different, a more conscious person. And then when you take leadership class, please put some money towards leadership classes. Listen, people, I can't tell you how many people tell me, I don't have money for your $5,000 program, but I sure as hell will go take another $5,000 myofascial release thing for a couple more letters that I don't know what the hell's going to make. They're just giving themselves permission.
Yeah.
At some point, I had 30 letters after my name. I'm just telling you. Right now, it's like I literally sign things L, because I'm just like, it doesn't matter. So at this, like, think to do that early. Like, again, I just feel so blessed that I was put out and I went to the New York Student Enclave, whatever, in PT school. Like, take those opportunities while you're in school to like take on some leadership, see the baloney, understand the big picture. It doesn't have to be political. Like, just even organizing different things like the wellness group or the book club. Like, think out of the box, people. Like, and the book club doesn't have to be 35 different ways to use a stem cell. Like, it could be like just personal development. That would be my biggest recommendation. Now, if you're trying to make the shift, be doing that, and you're going to bring that to the table. Then you'll go get a job that you can bring that to. Be courageous enough. Find a coach that's going to shift your mind out of scarcity. I'm sorry, but in school, they make you feel not enough because that's their business plan. You won't be taking their CEUs unless you feel not enough. And, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're not going to kill people with mistakes. Like, I get it. Yes, the person falls, they have a liability, but that's the liability talking to you. Understand that. Figure out your risk aversion. Do riskier things. I mean, it's just, that's the advice I have. It's be very careful getting 56 letters after your name and thinking somebody owes you something.
Well, and the general public doesn't know what those letters mean.
They don't care. They don't even know how to pronounce my name, Lisette. Like, it doesn't matter.
Right. They want to know, are you the solution? Are you the answer to my question? Are you going to be the one that solves my problem?
And sometimes they don't even know what their problem is. So you have to meet them where they are. And unless you get the emotional intelligence, like, one of the first things I would do with my clients that was different, and definitely I do now when working with people, if they're going to shift their life in any way, is I give them a psychosocial assessment. When I saw those things and I saw them being used in athletic programs for perform, I took it. I went and I got the certification. Did I get CEU credits for that? Did anybody accept that? No. But I knew. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's the way you got to be.
Yep.
You got to take things that you're going to use.
Absolutely. I've told people I've been certified, I got a certified life coach certificate, right? Not to be a life coach. That's not why I did it. I did it to make sure that I was able to coach my students and my advisees and my mentees better, right? Make sure I was giving them all I could. And then B, my clients, right? people that I coach in business and the people that I coach in, you know, their aspect of things. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make sure I was doing a better job of coaching
Right.
them, right? So the life coach had nothing to do with, you know, getting that certificate and those letters after my name. It, you know, and I was thankful to see that I was doing most of the stuff that was already listed. There were a
Mm-hmm.
couple of things I was able to pick up, but that's why I took it, was to find
Mm-hmm.
those gaps and help learn more things on how to be a
Right.
better coach.
Yeah,
So the
it's
more
just,
you can do that for like self improvement and self
yeah.
learning, it's an investment in yourself. So that's where, when you say take the leadership course, right? Take the $5,000 leadership course, because that's going to be an investment in self. Not that a CEU course isn't an investment in self too, but if you feel like you really need those skills, then by all means take the CEU course, get the skills, practice them, implement. But you know, if you're looking to just become a better individual and learn and better yourself, then start investing in yourself and take things that are going to help you get better. You
And
know?
like what you said, like this is what they don't teach enough in school. So much of your treatment is the relationship.
Yeah. Oh,
Like
absolutely.
that, like you know, so much of is the energetics. Like you just, some people without that bedside manner, or like you could literally kill people. In fact, I feel my mother's journey with cancer, like that final doctor was just like so cold and whatever. Like she would literally had her numbers the lowest. She was like basically in the normal range. Who knows if that was her normal? And she never had, when she, and she, and for the most part, her body did not have the cancer, but she ended up dying 6 or 8 weeks after that. And he was just like, let's do another. Like he just was not celebrating any of the game. And I really was like, that killed her. Like that
Mm-hmm.
was just, she was
Yeah.
just so tired at that point. Like we have such power in our words and this and that. And I think we understand that from the sense of, uh, I'm telling you information and that's powerful, but we don't understand that, like, once I realized I'm getting people better, and it was when I was up in New York after 9/11, and I could really, that really confirmed it for me about this mind over body and sort of seeing the patterns where people's, like, people who just had would cry on the table just from like what they had seen or whatever, they were all dealing with shoulders and they were all dealing with necks, you know, and other people who were just, you know, just physically just like the police officers, the firefighters, and whatever, that were like, they couldn't do any, they were all with the backs and the leg, like there was just patterns. And yes, I could rationalize it to their professions, but there was just so many patterns. And I realized me being there with them, me being present, me being 100% responsible for the environment, I'm trying to evoke that. This is what we do in pediatrics all the time. And I was like, why do we stop doing this when they get over a certain age? Why do we think geriatrics and pediatric care and orthopedics and women's health? Why do we think, and I helped more women with women's health with my hands off their vagina than I ever did with my hands on it. And that's 100% true.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it's amazing how far soft skills can go. And you talked about it a little bit earlier, right? Emotional intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
EQ, you know. To me, it seems like those in healthcare, for the most part, have a good amount of that. But there are some that I've experienced personally throughout PT school who do not have that, and either need to work on it, right? It can be taught a little bit. I think it can be worked on. It's not easy to do, but you've got to have that relationship. You've got, if you're looking to hit that triple aim and get that patient buy-in, you've got to have that rapport. You've got to have that
Well,
relationship.
well, it's moved to the quadruple aim, really, right? We're
Yeah.
trying, again,
Yeah.
we're resisting that quadruple, like we're resisting that last little piece
Yeah.
of the person. And it's because of that. And we went into a numbers game. We stopped having interviews. We started just looking at, you know, like every other resume thing, pulling out, going for the, and when you get a bunch of, again, literally research does show that the smarter people are, the more closed off and closed minded they tend to become.
Yeah.
Because they know everything, and they tend to take, you know, we all have personality types, and they tend to really feel comfortable in their insulary circles of more and more controllers and more analytics, and that's fine. But that's a very masculine powered space, and if you don't massage the feminine side of the power, the same coin, just different side, the promoters, the visionaries, like you're talking about, the supporters, the big lovers, if you can't be a chameleon amongst all those things, you probably shouldn't be too high in leadership.
Yeah.
You probably should stay as a manager.
Yep. Well, and I think, that's benefited me for years, right? I'm easily the dumbest smart guy you'll ever meet. I've been a straight B student my whole life, a couple C's sprinkled
Mhm.
in there, got a D in ordinary differential equations. I'm not that smart, but I tell you what, I'll work hard, right? I mean, I'm persistent. I've got a good grit score. So, uh, you know, again, it took me a handful of times to pass my board exam, right? I'm just not that smart. I'm not test savvy. I'm
Well,
not,
are you, that's what I'm saying. Like, are you not intelligent or are you not able to, you're not a test taker? Like, that's the other thing, right? We have to kind of like, and especially in academia, my gosh, like start understanding that there's emotional intelligence, but there is also relational intelligence that's
yeah,
not necessarily just emotional. There's the idea of the energetics, just what
yeah,
I was talking about, like just the fact of like, like your chemistry versus someone else's chemistry. Let's be
yeah,
really honest with that. And we can adapt those things through the ideas of environmental solutions and this and that. So you may have evolved to be really great people reader and energy
yeah,
reader, and then be able to do a lot of stuff that people need their intelligence and logic for. Or you may have a very latent, what's the saying? If you ask a fish to like climb, like what is the one, like the fish can't climb the tree or whatever, like if you
yeah,
give
yeah.
it. So that's the thing. Like we're labeling, and so early, having been a parent, I was like, oh my God, like I was supposed to decide what my kid wanted to be on what track in high school when they started middle school. Absolutely ridiculous. We've got to get off of this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's, pretty powerful stuff here that we've been able to cover today
Mm-hmm,
in a
mm-hmm.
short amount of time. So I appreciate that. Where can people reach out to you if they want to find out more about what you're up to and
Yeah.
what you're doing on the social medias and all that good stuff?
Yeah. My handle on social media on Facebook and Instagram is at Doctor with the DR at Dr. Lisa Holland PT. So you can connect with me there. But get me over on LinkedIn. Okay, Lisa Holland over on LinkedIn, and my name is Lisette Alvarez-Holland over there. And my website is also www.drlisahollandpt.com. Connecting on me, and my podcast Owning Her Health speaks to a lot of this. I speak primarily with women. There's been a couple of courageous men to come on there, but it is that conversation of how can we sort of like start highlighting the person behind the things they literally flipping their pains into passions that then they chose to go into: thought leadership, entrepreneurship, this type of farmer mentality versus hunter and gatherer and warrior. Because right now, we need to thrive. Like that's very apparent. So find me on any of those things. I'm more than happy to connect.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll drop all those links in the show notes so that they're easy for everyone to get to.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure reconnecting and
Always a
chatting with you.
pleasure, F. Scott. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for reaching out. It's been a while, way too long.
yeah, absolutely. I'll look forward to hearing from you again in the near future.
Thanks.